Have you ever truly wondered what happens when a brotherhood forged under blinding stadium lights and feverish applause collides with individual ambition so raw it threatens to eclipse every shared memory? Could the very success that millions cheered for actually be the wedge driving the most beloved K-pop group of all time into unspoken conflict? Tonight, the world is asking a question many believed they would never dare to entertain. Is Kim Taehyung, the soulful, charismatic V of BTS, secretly jealous of Jin's soaring solo triumph? And if he is, what does that mean for the group whose unity has inspired an entire generation to believe in forever? It was supposed to be nothing more than a celebration, a victory lap, an inevitable triumph after years of relentless work. When Jin stepped onto the stage to perform Rope It, the arena pulsed with a fervor that defied description. The air itself felt electric, charged by the knowledge that BTS's eldest had finally claimed a corner of the spotlight all his own. Yet as the final note of Rope It faded into the roar of an ecstatic crowd, somewhere beyond the glittering stage, another story was already taking shape, a story of quiet resentment, of a simmering jealousy insiders claim has been building since long before Echo ever hit #1. It was this moment the fulfillment of Jin's dreams, or the spark that set fire to hidden insecurities no one was prepared to name out loud. You have to wonder what Taehyung thought as he watched the headlines erupt across every platform imaginable. Jin's Echo dominates global charts. Jin's solo tour sets records. Jin redefines K-pop stardom. Did he feel pride as a brother and bandmate, or did something else twist in the space behind his ribcage? A quiet, unbidden question that refused to be silenced. What about me? If you believe the whispers already swirling among industry insiders and longtime staff, this question has haunted Taehyung for months. Those close to BTS describe a series of tense, late-night conversations, moments when Taehyung's voice trembled with a frustration he couldn't quite disguise. Some insist it was never about envy, but about fear. Fear that the world would begin to see Jin as something more than the group's comedic young. Fear that the group's carefully balanced dynamic was already shifting into something unrecognizable. And if the reports are to be believed, no amount of public congratulations could conceal the storm gathering just beneath the surface. Could it be that Taehyung, whose own artistry has captivated millions, was caught off guard by the intensity of Jin's success? After all, Echo didn't merely perform well, it obliterated expectations. In a matter of days, Jin's second solo album was streaming in more than 50 countries, climbing to the top of charts previously dominated by Western pop icons. It was the sort of achievement that demanded the world's attention, a moment so bright it inevitably cast shadows behind it. Was Taehyung standing in one of those shadows, wondering if the light would ever find him again? For years, fans have held tight to the belief that BTS is impervious to the rivalries that fracture lesser groups. Every interview, every behind-the-scenes video, every playful social media post has been a carefully curated testament to their unbreakable bond. But what if that bond is more fragile than anyone dared to imagine? What if the very success that has made BTS a global phenomenon is the same force now straining their unity to the breaking point? You don't have to look far for signs that something has shifted. In the days following Echo's historic debut, ARMY flooded social platforms with praise and adoration. Yet eagle-eyed fans quickly noticed Taehyung's conspicuous silence. No congratulatory post. No shared clip. No visible acknowledgement of Jin's triumph. Was it an oversight, an accident of timing? Or was it a choice, a silent protest against a moment he could not bring himself to celebrate? When Taehyung finally did speak, his words were measured, almost painfully polite. "Proud of you, Hyung." 6 words that felt less like a celebration and more like an obligation. For a fandom that has grown accustomed to exuberant declarations of love and support, it was impossible to ignore the restraint in his tone. Why did it feel as if something had shifted in those few days? Was it simply the exhaustion of relentless schedules? Or was it the first undeniable proof that beneath the polished veneer of brotherhood, something darker was taking root? If insiders are to be believed, Taehyung's unease didn't start with Echo. Those close to the group point to a pattern, small moments that, in retrospect, feel like puzzle pieces clicking into place. The way Taehyung sometimes looked away when Jin spoke about his solo ambitions. The way he seemed restless during rehearsals for the Run Seekjin EP tour. The way his smile never quite reached his eyes when staff congratulated Jin on the album's record-breaking pre-orders. Are these simply coincidences, the inevitable wear and tear of long-term collaboration? Or are they the earliest symptoms of a fracture that no one wants to admit exists? Even more unsettling is the possibility that Taehyung's ambivalence has less to do with Jin's talent and more to do with his own fear of being left behind. For years, Taehyung has been one of BTS's most recognizable faces, his every move dissected and adored by millions. Yet as the group enters an era of individual projects, the spotlight has become a finite resource, one that can only shine so brightly on any single member at a time. Is it possible that Taehyung is struggling to reconcile the group's collective success with his own need to be seen and heard? Industry observers have noted that the timing of Echo's release coincided almost precisely with Taehyung's negotiations for a major endorsement deal rumored to be the most lucrative of his career. Some suggest that the media frenzy surrounding Jin's album may have inadvertently eclipsed Taehyung's announcement, fueling a resentment that has only grown in the weeks since. Was this simply an unfortunate coincidence, or did Jin's team intentionally seize the moment to solidify his dominance in the public eye? You have to ask yourself, in an industry built on spectacle and competition, can even the strongest friendships survive the relentless pursuit of individual glory? BTS has always insisted that their bond transcends business, that they are a family first and foremost. But what happens when that family is forced to compete for attention, for accolades, for the approval of an audience whose devotion can never be evenly divided? What happens when the world demands that one brother rise while another must wait his turn in the shadows? The answer may already be playing out in subtle, unspoken ways. Those present backstage at Jin's Seoul concert describe a moment when Taehyung hovered just beyond the edge of a celebration, his expression inscrutable. He clapped when the crowd demanded an encore, but he did not join the rest of the members who rushed to embrace Jin in the wings. Was it shyness, as some have claimed? Or was it something closer to disappointment, a recognition that no matter how hard he tries, there will always be moments when he must stand aside while someone else basks in the roar of the crowd? As the weeks unfold and BTS fans continue to pore over every gesture and utterance, the questions only multiply. Is Taehyung merely biding his time, preparing to unleash a solo project so audacious it will eclipse everything that has come before? Or is he grappling with the possibility that no matter how beloved he is, the narrative has already shifted in ways he cannot control? And if so, how long can he hide the resentment that so many now believe is simmering just beneath his carefully managed smile? Perhaps the most haunting question of all is the simplest. What happens next? Will Taehyung and Jin confront this unspoken tension and find a path back to the unbreakable unity they once claimed as their birthright? Or is this the moment when their bond begins to unravel in earnest, one polite congratulation at a time? If the rumors are true, and insiders insist they are, then BTS is entering a chapter more complicated, more human, and more fragile than any they have faced before. The world is watching. The fandom is waiting, and the story is far from over. If you close your eyes and imagine the scene backstage that night, you can almost feel the weight of all the unspoken words pressing in on every corner of that narrow hallway. Jin, flushed with the adrenaline of performing Rope It before tens of thousands of adoring fans, gripped a water bottle in one hand and waved off the compliments with the bashful grin that has always been part of his charm. But behind him, just out of frame in every photograph, Taehyung stood with his arms folded across his chest, watching the celebration with a stillness that felt more like resignation than pride. For a split second, their eyes met, and though neither man spoke, those who witnessed it insist that everything they had struggled to conceal came to the surface in that moment. Was it jealousy? Was it grief? Or was it the beginning of a reckoning neither of them could escape any longer? To understand why this moment matters so deeply to millions, you have to remember what BTS has always stood for. Not just dazzling choreography and record-breaking albums, but the promise of unwavering solidarity. For a generation of fans who have weathered heartbreak, isolation, and doubt, BTS became a symbol of unconditional support. Each member's success was treated as the group's collective triumph, proof that no individual ego could ever disrupt their bond. But as the era of solo projects expands, that illusion is growing harder to maintain. The headlines alone tell a story of diverging paths. Echo is being hailed as a watershed moment in Jin's artistic journey, praised for its blend of theatrical flair and genuine vulnerability. Music critics who once dismissed him as the comic relief are now calling him the dark horse of the group, the member who was underestimated for too long. While these accolades are undoubtedly deserved, they also cast a long shadow across everyone else. For Taehyung, whose own solo ambitions have been no secret, there is a bitter irony in watching the industry that once ignored Jin now fall over itself to declare him the group's breakout star. Is it any wonder, then, that Taehyung's reaction has ignited such a firestorm of speculation? Some fans have tried to downplay the tension, insisting that everyone is reading too much into a single moment of awkwardness. But others, particularly those who have followed BTS since the earliest days, recognize the subtle signs of a wound that has been quietly deepening for years. You can trace it all the way back to 2019, when BTS began their global stadium tours in earnest. Even then, there were murmurs that Taehyung felt overshadowed, not by Jin, but by the group's explosive success. He was, by many accounts, the most sensitive of the seven, the one who seemed most attuned to the expectations pressing down on them. In interviews, he often spoke about the anxiety of living up to the ARMY's love, the fear that one misstep could undo everything they had built. So when Jin began to carve out a solo identity that set the world ablaze, was it inevitable that Taehyung would feel left behind? The tragedy and the fascination of this moment is how achingly human it all is. No matter how much we want to believe in the myth of perfect unity, no group of artists can share the same spotlight forever. Sooner or later, the need to be seen as an individual becomes impossible to suppress. The irony is that no one doubts Taehyung's brilliance. His own songs have charted. His voice has been called one of the most distinctive in K-pop. His stage presence is magnetic in a way few idols can replicate. But when the world pivots its attention to someone else, when every headline, every trending topic, every interview revolves around a bandmate, how do you not feel the sting of it? That is the question echoing through every corner of the fandom tonight. What if this is the moment we look back on years from now and recognize as the turning point? The first undeniable sign that the pressures of global stardom were finally splintering BTS from the inside out. You can already see the dividing lines forming among fans. Some insist that Taehyung's silence is being misread, that he simply prefers to support his brothers in private rather than public spectacle. Others are convinced that the tension is real, that it is the inevitable result of a group forced to compete for the same finite spotlight in an industry that thrives on rivalry.